Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the final day of the 2021 inaugural EGW Utility Solutions Conference. We know how valuable your time is, and we're grateful you've chosen to spend it with us today. My name is Scott Baber, and I'll be producing this session entitled Solutions for Locating and Internal Inspection of Live Polyethylene Gas Mains. Before I introduce today's presenter, Daryl Reid, I just want to go over a few things. First, I just want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded and we will be available to view later for those who missed it. Second, as you may or may not be aware, we are giving away a door prize for every session throughout the conference. For this class, Jameson has graciously donated a prize of a $100 Visa gift card. We'll choose the winner from the list of attendees in each session, so please make sure you've logged in with your real name and contact info so we can reach you and send you your prize. All of your mics will be muted throughout the presentation. Don't worry, you can still interact with the presenters by asking questions via the Q&A function. If you look at the top of your team screen, you'll see a button that looks like a question mark and a bubble. When you click that button and type in a question, it'll come straight to me. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session where I'll read your questions to Daryl so he can answer them. If we run out of time before getting to your question, don't worry, we will save the question and contact you directly next week with your answer. Feel free to submit questions as they come to mind throughout the class, and don't worry, submitting questions won't interrupt the presentation, so we encourage you to send as many as you want, as often as you'd like. Sound good? Awesome. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Daryl Reid with EGW Utility Solutions. Daryl currently fills two roles for EGW's Utility Solutions Group, product manager and account manager for Atmos Energy. Daryl has been with the company since 2006 and has served in a variety of different capacities during his tenure, including warehousing, customer service, purchasing, territory management, and he is known for his attention to detail and ability to convey his knowledge and expertise to others in a way that makes sense. Daryl is married and lives with his wife, Tanya, in the DFW area. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and Daryl, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for being here today, everybody. I appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about a system that some of you may have seen used for locating, but we're also going to talk about how it can be used for inspecting live gas mains. So our agenda today will identify a couple of problems. Number one being locating untonable utility pipelines. The other will be how to identify potential underground issues without stopping service. We have one versatile system that offers both of those solutions. The system will combine specialized tools from multiple manufacturers, and then we'll talk about the solutions of locating via traceable rod insertion and internal inspection of live gas mains. To start with, let's talk about the problem of untonable utility pipelines. We know that underground utility congestion is worsening all the time. Accurate pipe and cable locating is critical and becoming increasingly difficult. Due to the congestion, the risk of damage is always increasing. Found these photos online. I think we've all seen something similar. 35+ million miles of underground utilities in the US and counting. And it's becoming more and more congested. Even in smaller remote areas, you're seeing utilities stacked one on top of each other. So locating is critical. Untonable lines are often caused by no or faulty tracer wire, poor wire connections, insufficient grounding, and incorrect or non-existent mapping. And even the best laid damage prevention plans and the best wire connectors, everything sometimes fails. We know that crossbores are becoming important. You've always got the risk of damage, and we want to do everything we can to prevent incidents that cause damage to property or loss of life. The second problem we talked about was identifying problems inside the main without shutting off the flow of gas. So I just put a couple of examples here. Let's say you found out a new contractor has been using a faulty heating iron, and now you're concerned that there may be bad butt fusions in the new subdivision they just completed. How do you check without digging up all the fusion joints? Perhaps you've eliminated or you've determined that there's water in your main. Without digging up the whole neighborhood or the whole area around the main, how do you find out where the water's getting in at and make the repair? For example, your GIS map may indicate that a main is supposed to run parallel to a highway, but when you attempt to locate it, it seems to turn 90 degrees and cross under the highway. You don't want to stop rush hour traffic, but you've got to confirm the location so Google doesn't bore their fiber through it. What are you going to do? And then lastly, your crew is excavating a 6-inch steel main, but as they dig down and expose it, they find a 6-inch PE main instead. Wouldn't it be nice if they could figure out where that poly starts and ends without having to pothole or dig up the entire line? So later we're going to talk about what it would mean if you could see inside your main without stopping service and with minimal ground disturbance. So what is the solution? Thankfully, we don't have to go sniffing the ground for pipelines. The system we're going to talk about today comprises 3 components. First of all, George Fisher Central Plastic makes the new VersaTap electrofusion fittings. Those allow access to the pipe for the new George Fisher SureTap tapping tool to tap the pipe and allow entry. Once the tap is connected or is finished, we'll attach the Jameson directional entry tool. Let's take a look at these components in detail. First, the VersaTap fittings. I want everybody to know this is a universal electrofusion fitting. It's going to work with the same electrofusion processors you already use. This will install using your existing George Fisher brand clamps, peelers, and pressure test caps. The dimensions of the cap here are the same as a high volume tapping tee. So you can use all your high volume test caps. These fittings are available in 2 through 8-inch IPS. They provide a permanent, reusable, or one-time access point to live gas mains. Completion plug is included, and the beauty of the design is that the top access portion is the same dimension on all saddle sizes. That means that we only need one size of valve and one cutter for all applications 2 through 8-inch. Next, let's look at the tapping tool. This is specifically designed for polyethylene pipe. Again, it works on 2-inch through 8-inch IPS. And when you purchase this, you get a kit that includes everything you need. If you look here in the photo down here, we have a valve to fitting adapter and the valve. We have the tapping tool itself. We have 2 specially designed polyethylene cutters that retain the coupon and all the shavings. We have a completion plug insertion and removal tool, and then we have a coupon remover. All of that comes in a heavy-duty wheeled Pelican style case that weighs about 44 pounds. So it's very lightweight and easy to move. This system provides multiple uses. Through that newly tapped hole, you can insert traceable rods, which we're going to talk about today. You can insert inspection cameras, which we're going to talk about today. And then there's also options coming out on the market or already on the market for plugging bags, bladders, etc. You can use this as a siphon or purge point. And I'm sure that George Fisher and Jameson are also looking at other applications that are yet to be determined. The next component of the system is the Jameson directional entry tool. This tool enables vertical insertion of tracer rods and cameras into live gas mains and facilitates the difficult first bend at entry. It works on live mains with no blow-by up to 125 PSI. It's compatible with keyhole procedures due to its size, and it'll fit and operate inside a minimum 24-inch keyhole. Works on all mains as small as 2 inches. Rotates 360 degrees so that you can insert your rod or your camera in either direction. Once you've located in one direction, you can turn around and go the other direction, all through one entry point. This works on the directional entry tool itself will work on PVC, PE, steel, or ductile iron. And the tapping tool and saddles that we've already talked about are obviously for poly only, but there are other fittings on the market that it can allow you to get in through PVC, steel, etc. So the first solution to the first problem of untonable pipelines is the Jameson live gas main tracer. So this also is rated to operate at 125 PSI when used with the directional entry tool. This is a 1/4 inch by 600 foot copper wire encased in fiberglass, and it is available for use on 2-inch and larger mains. They start at 2-inch because you have to have enough space to make that 90-degree turn, and anything smaller just doesn't allow it. This is locatable from above ground after it's inserted into the pipe using standard cable and pipe utility locators. Through this process, you can avoid major disruptions to roads and landscapes. You do have to dig and expose the line once, and then as you move down the line, you have to expose, but you're doing so in planned and manageable locations. Like the example earlier from main goes under the street. You don't have to dig under the street to find it. You can run this cable from an easily accessible point, follow your locate and confirm it because your tracer wire is inside the pipe. So you know you're getting your line. Some of you may have used the live gas main tracer before, and I want you to know that these are now available with 5-foot markings on the rod so that you're able to see how much rod you have in the ground. So now we're going to look at a short video that shows how the VersaTap fitting, SureTap tapping tool, directional entry tool, and mainline tracer are all used. Let me play this for you, and I may talk over it a little bit from time to time. So you can see they start with the fitting there. They remove the cap and the completion plug, thread on the valve. Tighten the valve with the provided wrench. Now you're ready to install your tapping tool. All the threads are quick connect and all the joints are gasket sealed, so you don't have to over tighten things. Everything goes together easy and comes apart easy. The tap takes about 15 seconds and you can do it with one hand. It's very easy to do. It's got a bleeder valve to reduce the pressure inside. Once you close your valve, you can take that tool off. Now they're going to install the directional entry tool. Notice the cup there that's going to guide the tracer rod or the camera into the pipe. This shows attaching a stuffing box to the top of the tool so that they can insert the mainline tracer. It's got a spring tip that helps it navigate through the pipeline. Once that's assembled, they're going to connect it to the Jameson directional entry tool. That handle there is going to indicate your travel direction. So you want to aim that down your line, whichever way you're wanting to go. Open your valve, lower the assembly. And lock the carriage in place so that your line pressure is not trying to push it out the whole time. Comes with lubable wipes so that you can easily slide the rod in. And you're going to go hand over hand and slide that rod in. You'll notice that this just shows up close that it's going into the pipeline. You go up to 400 feet. Then you perform your tracer inspection. Now you can retract the tracer rod. And what they're not going to show in this video is if you had to, you could go the other direction simply by rotating that black handle and reinserting and relocating your rod. Once your process is complete, you raise the assembly back up out of your main, close your valve, bleed out your gas, and you're finished. So that shows how everything goes together. Oh yeah, you do need to install your completion plug after everything is finished. It's very easy to do. It's got a positive lock on it so you can't drop the plug in crooked. And this just shows that once you remove it and put your cap on, it's a permanent install, just like any tap to your branch saddle would be. All right, so the other solution that we've talked about a little bit so far is inspecting your mains without having to shut down the flow of gas. This is made possible with the directional entry tool and a specialized keyhole gas camera made by the Hathorn Company. This camera system was developed in 2010 specifically for the natural gas industry with help from GTI and Southwest Gas. The camera comes with a 400-foot flexible insertion rod. It's uniquely designed rugged color camera head with adjustable LED lights and a sonde for locating. The display is 12.1-inch HDMI and it is daylight readable. It is the brightest monitor that you can get in a system like this, and it actually is very readable in the daylight. There's a large rechargeable battery pack, so you've got good battery life. There's a full keyboard with text writing capabilities, so you can make notes on your video as you go. And then there's USB and hard drive recording, so you can save the videos that you found and use them as needed once you get back to the office. This system does work with the Jameson directional entry tool, but I wanted to point out that the camera is rated for 60 PSI, where the Jameson system is rated for 125. So you do have to pressure down just a little bit, but it still covers the operating pressure of most mains. This is just a close-up of the system. On the right, you can see how the monitor and keyboard mounts on top of the reel. And this, I wanted to show a close-up so you can see the quality of the screen. It's all weatherproofed, even the keyboard. You have the ability to record. There's a footage counter, and you can activate the sonde to turn it on so you can locate, or you can have it off, just the lighting, contrasting. It really is a well thought out display controller, and it has all the features you may need to record what you find under your mains, or inside your mains, excuse me. There's one component that is not mentioned earlier, but it's shown here on the right when installed on top of the directional entry tool. This is just a specialized stuffing box, and I wanted to show it so you could see that the gaskets inside are all slit, so they snap around the actual cable. Once you put them all on in order and then screw the lid down, it's all a self-contained stuffing box. It does have a bleeder valve so that you can allow the gas pressure to release, and you can see the camera coming out down here at the bottom, ready to be inserted into the Jameson tool. And then similar to before, we've just shown here that the camera is going the same direction as the handle and inserting into the main. So now we're going to watch a video that shows actual live in the field recordings at several different demos and tests that we've done for a few customers. This is all patched together. It's not necessarily all from the same locate, but I put it all together to show you today just how good the camera works and how interesting it is to find what's inside your main. So first, you can see that we're pushing some debris with the camera head. That's fairly common when you find stuff in the line. You'll notice through the video that it seems like the pipe is rotating. That's actually the camera head rotating. And so occasionally you'll see the bottom of the pipe on the top of the video. But once you get used to it, it's easy. Whoops, excuse me. Didn't mean to click that. Let me play that again. Technical difficulties. Sorry, what I was trying to explain was that the camera itself is not self-leveling, but as you can see, as it moves through the pipe, you do start to figure out when the bottom is swiveled to the top. You can see here, this is why I wanted to stop the video. This looks to be the stiffener of a coupling or polyethylene shavings that were left when cutting the pipe. Here we are approaching a butt fusion, and in my opinion, it looks a little bit suspect. Looks pretty uniform here, but here there's a strange edge, not very well aligned. This might be something that you want to drop an electronic marker ball at this point after you locate your sonde and come back and inspect it from the outside. Here we have more debris in the line. You can see down here that it's counting the feet as we go in and feet and meters. More PE pipe shavings, lots of them. Here we have a T off to the side, clearly visible. Now we've entered water. You can see the air pocket at the top of the pipe. The camera is traveling through water completely submerged. This was on a demo where the company suspected that they had water in the line and they asked us to help them find where it was coming in. Underwater sediment, air pocket continues. Here's the camera emerging from the low spot in the line that the water was gathered in. This is just an example that occasionally, if you're using a traceable rod, it might get broken and left in. Here's another butt fusion T. Possibly a reducer here on the far side, more grass and broken tracer rod. There's your butt fusion again. That was always interesting to me. I clicked the wrong button again, sorry. There's a metal band from a pallet wrap or from the pipe pallet and a cap left inside this pipeline. You never know what's in there. Here we found the end of the tracer rod and what appears to be a 90 or possibly a 45. You'll see that the camera in this case does go through the 90 and continue. That's just adjusting the lights. Here we come out the other side. And it looks like they're gonna approach another bend. We were shocked that it went through 2 bends. I would not expect it to go through double bends every time, just due to the friction. More bends, another butt fusion. This one looks a lot cleaner. Probably no concern here. There's a reducer. Obviously, some of you guys will recognize all this stuff as it's coming up, but it's good to see that everything is clear and easy to identify. I believe this was in a steel line, more water. And then maybe a transition from steel to poly or from black poly to yellow. Clearly see the end of a cut pipe. And that might be a point of concern for me. I don't know if it's camera in the water or if it looks like maybe the pipeline is getting crushed there a little bit. Here we have water pooling into a branch or a tap tee, under a tap tee, excuse me. And then this is just a dry line where you can see the water has been before. All right, so hope that video was pretty clear. Sorry, I bounced around a little bit. In summary, the George Fisher SureTap and Jameson directional tool make an extremely versatile pair. You can insert traceable rods to locate, you can inspect your lines, insert plugging bags and bladders, use it as a siphon or purge point. And when used with the Jameson Live Gas Main Tracer, you can locate untonable mains from 2" through 8". You can reduce locate ticket recalls and problem locates by going out and finding these assets and making them permanently locatable when you do with marker balls or mapping. You can reduce damages due to incorrect locates and correct or confirm your GIS mapping. When you bring the Hathorn keyhole gas camera into the game, like we showed you, you can find potential issues before they develop into hazards or problems, such as inspecting fusion joints and any other areas of concern. You can find water ingress, stress cracks, debris, and so much more. So with that, I've reached the end of my presentation and I would love to answer some questions for you.
All right, we do have a few questions, Daryl. Let's see here. One question we got is asking, is leaving shavings in the pipe an issue?
I would say that probably is going to depend on what your utility determines is an issue and isn't. I can't tell you whether shavings being left there is going to do damage or not. I just know that if you got them in there, you can find them with this system. I would suspect that metal bands can do damage, but hey, I don't know why that stuff was left in there, but I would say just talk to your compliance or your management there within the utility and see what they would identify as something that needs to be removed versus things that can be left in. When you're tapping the line, I know for sure that leaving shavings and dropping the coupon into the line is something that utilities don't want to do. When this tool very first came out, that was an issue because we could only use other tapping equipment on poly pipe and it wasn't designed for poly. So thankfully, after the tool was released, George Fisher got involved, developed their VersaTap fittings and their SureTap tapping tool, which now eliminate those shavings and the coupon entering the pipe during this tapping process. It's a great, well-designed tool.
Thank you, Daryl. We have another question. This one is asking, how many feet can a 600-foot tracer reel typically travel in one direction?
That's a great question. So the maximum is 600 feet, but it's pretty rare that you're going to reach a full 600 feet. I've heard testimony of customers reaching 450 feet. I've seen times when you only get 150 feet. There's various things that can cause you not to be able to push the rod as far as you hoped. Friction is a big problem, and it just naturally gets harder the farther you go. In some larger pipes, you can have a little bit of snaking with the camera cable or the locator cable, which does increase the friction. If you're going uphill, friction is difficult and you'll usually have a shorter run. We navigated through some 90-degree bends in that one video, but if you run into a 90 or a T unexpectedly, you're not going to be able to push it very far. So it really varies every time you put it in the ground. Thankfully, if you have both the locator cable and the camera, if you run it in there, your cable goes in about 50 feet. You think it's supposed to go 400, it stopped at 50 and you can't figure out why. You pull the tracer rod out, put the camera in and discover that maybe there's an impediment or maybe there's a 90 there and the line turns where you didn't expect it to. I was on a job one time, we were doing a live demo in the field in Illinois for a 4-inch poly line. The location we were at, the site supervisor said was poly for many, many, many yards in both directions. He did say there was a steel transition approximately 200 feet down. We inserted the camera, got it moving, and about 50 or 60 feet from where we entered, we saw a transition from poly to steel. Sure enough, they confirmed after we left that their transition was a lot sooner than they thought, and they were able to go in and correct their GIS mapping based on what we found during that demo.
All right, let's see, we have another question. Is the camera intrinsically safe and does it need to be?
That's a great question. It's one that comes up very often. It is not intrinsically safe. However, it's designed not to leak. The sewer cam has been around for a long time. Sewer lines are more explosive than gas lines, and these cameras have been used in sewer lines before with the same heads. Also, and most importantly, it's not the design of the camera, it is the environment inside the line. If we're inside a gas line, it is supposed to be 98%, maybe 100% gas, just a little bit of ethane and some other stuff in there. And we all know that gas cannot ignite without oxygen, and there's just not enough oxygen inside of a gas pipeline for it to ignite. So generally, with the utilities that have already purchased this camera and use it on a daily basis, they will adopt a process where, for example, they will insert the camera into the Jameson tool with the power completely disconnected. So there's no chance of spark. Then they will open the valve and allow the Jameson tool to fill completely with gas. There's a purge or an air relief valve on the Jameson or on the stuffing box for the camera. So they will put a gas detector at that outlet of that valve and start bleeding it. Once they see high gas levels and they're no longer in the explosive range inside that tool, then they can close that valve, open the valve to get into the main again, or excuse me, the valve's already open. At that point, they can insert the camera past the Jameson tool into the main and then go plug the camera power in and turn it on. At that point, they're in a completely non-explosive environment and there have been no issues. But if you're asking if it's intrinsically safe, it does not carry that rating.
Thank you, Daryl. We have another question. Will other camera systems work with this system?
That's a great question too. The answer is yes. Other camera systems will work. The trigger point or the key point is that the camera head has to be smaller than 1 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and it needs to be relatively short, like an inch or a little bit longer. Anything longer than that won't make the 90-degree turn at the bottom of the device. So if your camera head has a small enough head to navigate the turn, you can use it. The reason that we chose the Hathorn early on is because it's currently the only camera that is small enough and has a 400-foot cable. Most of the other cameras on the market are simply sewer cams that are labeled as a gas camera, and they have 150-foot cable, maybe 200-foot cable on the long side, but they just don't come in a longer length. And when you're using the Jameson directional tool, it's best if you can excavate and install the Jameson tool as few times as possible. So being able to go that longer distance with the camera is critical. So that's why we always have sold and recommend the Hathorn camera. I believe there is an intrinsically safe camera on the market, but it, last time I checked, was more than double the price of the Hathorn. So it's not one that anybody's using that I know of for this application.
Thank you, Daryl. We have another question. You mentioned that the camera display has a battery. Are you able to use it while it's charging, or will it run off of 110?
It is completely battery operated. You cannot plug it into power and use it at the same time, but it can recharge off of 110. But you don't actually plug the camera into anything while it's being operated. It just runs off of its battery.
All right, we have another question. Are current users revisiting the fittings after they are first installed?
I can't speak to whether they are or not factually. I know that it's possible. When that question comes up in the field on a demo, I usually explain to people that the fitting itself is able to be entered more than once, but it is a plastic fitting with plastic threads. When you're using it with the Jameson and the SureTap, you're attaching a fitting with steel threads on there, and eventually the threads on the fitting could be compromised due to using over and over again. So I usually tell people not to design them to be re-entered on purpose, but just have the peace of mind to know that if they did have to go back, they could. Now, ideally, you want to prevent having to go back. And I didn't touch on it in this class because of time, but I usually talk about making a locate permanent after you've done the work to get in there. So you insert your rod, you paint the ground or drop flags, whatever you need to do, and you remove that rod. Before you leave that job and call it complete, I highly recommend that you either bury electronic markers. There's a couple brands out there. We recommend 3M. They have dumb markers and smart markers, so you can program them to read what's below that they're identifying. And if you're not going to use electronic markers, I highly recommend you get that new locate into your GIS system however you can. There's a wonderful new locator on the market made by VVAX that does 1/2 inch accurate GPS mapping It communicates with your GIS system. If you didn't get to see that class yesterday, I highly recommend you let us know and we will send you the recording once it's available. That locator is a game changer, and when used with a system like this, you could execute your mapping while you're there on the site and never really have to come back out and use that access point again, because now it's a locate that's easy. You can send crews out to dig without having to worry about it. So always make your locate permanent by improving your mapping or dropping electronic marker balls while you're on the site, and you shouldn't have to get in through those access points ever again.
Thank you, Daryl. We have another question. Let's see here. Are any spare parts needed with the insertion tool?
You get everything that you need when you purchase the kit. So it's going to come with a bunch of extra red gaskets, which is what provides the seal while the rod is sliding through. Those gaskets wear out, so we provide some extras there. You get a replacement end connector for the rod. So the traceable rods, just by design, they have to be certain amount of flexibility to allow them to bend, but they have to be rigid enough to stay straight as you're pushing them through the pipe. So that combination does lead to them being slightly brittle. Occasionally, a cable will break. It's usually due to user error because they close it off in a valve or something like that, but occasionally it breaks. So when you buy it, you do get an included repair kit so that you can cut off the damaged section of line, reattach your tip to the end. That way, with a 600-foot cable, maybe you break a few feet off the end several times. You've still got 400 or 500 feet left before it gets short enough that you need to replace the rod. You can buy the rod by itself, and all of the pieces that come with the Jameson tools to get you started, you can purchase those later. We usually recommend you purchase some for inventory during your initial purchase and then replenish those as needed. These tools from Jameson are phenomenal when they're in good working order and they're used. They're easy to repair in the field, so we always recommend you keep those parts on the shelf, keep your crews up and running, and they'll love these tools. If you don't have the parts on the shelf to repair them, they become paperweights, and we don't want that any more than you do. So yes, parts are available, and we highly recommend you keep them in inventory.
All right, we have one last question in so far. Who developed this technology?
Okay, so the camera and the Jameson directional device and the locating were all greatly influenced by GTI, the Gas Technology Institute. They approached the manufacturers early on with the need for the solution. They worked with Jameson closely to develop the directional entry tool. And then once that happened, Southwest Gas got involved and have helped refine the system to where it sits today. But originally it was all GTI and Jameson. And then Hathorn got involved when the camera became necessary. Also, I do want to point out that I misspoke earlier. You can use the camera while it's being charged. Thankfully, one of my coworkers corrected me on that. So you can use it while it's being charged. It comes with the charger that's included. And so, yeah, there you go. Any other questions?
We got no more questions so far. If you have any other questions, we still have time to get them in. Oh wait, one just popped in. Let's see here. How often should the tools be cleaned, and will a dirty tool affect the procedure?
That's a great question. Getting these tools dirty is bad for business. The threads and the movable parts on the tools need to stay clean. I have seen companies that purchase the George Fisher SureTap and Jameson device, and they are what I would say is best practice. They put down a heavy rubber mat, or at the bare minimum, a plywood sheet, and that's what they have on the side of their excavation or in the bottom of it to contain all their tools. They keep them clean while they're being used, and they clean them before they put them away. Those crews that do that have never had to send in anything for repair, maintenance, upgrade, or otherwise. There are other crews I've seen that don't have that much attention to detail when they're storing and using the tool. And like anything else, if you don't take care of it, they are going to need upkeep and maintenance. But if you keep them clean, take care of them, even spray the threads with some dry lubricant to keep them clean. Use that lubricant after every use and before every use. Keep your cases clean. These things last and last. The cutters last through many, many, many uses. And again, if you keep it clean, I haven't had anybody that does have to have any service at all.
All right, thank you, Daryl. Are there any last questions we want to get in? We still have time left. All right. Well, if there are no final questions, I just want to thank Daryl again, and I hope everyone got some great information out of this session this morning. If you think of more questions after we leave here, or if you want to reach us for any reason related to this conference, please email us at events@egwusa.com, and we'll be sure to get a reply to you as soon as possible. And of course, you can always reach out directly to your EGW territory manager, or you can call our office at 972-446-1655, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. All right, we'll leave this Q&A and contact slide up for a few more minutes so you have time to take down the contact info. And don't forget, if you've attended this session with your correct contact, then you'll be entered for the door prize of a $100 gift card. And we'll contact the winner soon. All right, Daryl, do you have any last comments?
I just want to thank you, Scott, and thank everybody for coming. Y'all reach out to your EGW territory manager if you're interested in learning more about these solutions. And with that, just thank you. Thank you for your time and your attention. Y'all have a good day.
All right, thank you again for sharing your insights, and a huge thank you to everyone who attended. Hopefully we'll see you in the last session of the conference that starts at 10:45. It is Benefits and Pitfalls, Virtual Instructor-Led Training Beyond COVID-19. And then we'll end the conference with closing remarks from our founder and CEO, Phil Wiegers. Have a great day, everyone.